what trends are you seeing in the junk removal industry that prompted you to develop this software?
What trends am I seeing? Repeat that question one more time.
What trends have you seen in the junk removal industry that have prompted you to make autopilot?
So, um, trends that I see in okay, so there's a lot of trends I see in the industry in general. There wasn't really so if we could talk about that, but there wasn't necessarily trends that prompted, I would say what prompted me to build autopilot was my frustration of expensive, complicated software and juggling so many pieces. But I wouldn't say there was any trends that, but there's definitely trends happening right now in junk removal that makes, if you want me to talk about that. But
What I'm thinking is, like let's say like 5 years ago, I would say, I'm not really sure. I'm guessing at this, but I'm thinking there wasn't much technology in, the junk removal industry. It was more of just a manual labor, and there wasn't really platforms to really advertise and do your marketing. I'm assuming, everything's with SEO and, all different like tech programs, like the way you look at a business and all, 5, 10 years ago, I wouldn't have even thought of that. It was more of just putting in the manual labor and, maybe getting some signs and putting them out in your local area. But when you speak, everything is from a computer standpoint, man. It's getting your marketing out there. So would you say that that's something that is, kind of changing for the junk industry?
Yeah. I mean, okay, so there's a lot to unpack here, but absolutely. So I would say some trends that are going on, is definitely with marketing, like influencers kind of infiltrating the space and kind of like bringing in a lot of supply versus demand. There's a lot of supply now, but the demand staying the same. So meaning there's a fuckload of saturation of junk removal companies, right? So it's changing. And I would argue that junk removal companies are now starting to be aware of these SEO companies they're hiring and these advertising agencies that they're hiring and everybody that they're hiring, and they're not getting results. They're spending a fuckload of money on SEO agencies. And, I don't want to talk bad about anybody, but there's a lot of fucking crooks out there. There's a couple of respected people in the Facebook groups, and I'll mention his name because I don't want him to think I'm blasting him because he's one of my good friends. But there's one guy out there that only one guy that I really talk to, and that's Louis Vandervalk. But there's a lot of other crooks out there. And I would say that what's happening is junk removal companies are now like starting to realize like, holy shit, we got to do this. We got to like get somebody in-house to do this, or I got to learn to do it myself, because you're paying thousands of dollars a month for these agencies to bring you leads. So I'd say, these trends, they're not what inspired my software. The trends are what inspired my software is completely different. But I would say these are trends that I'm seeing in junk removal and maybe a lot of home services, but junk removal is an interesting niche because it's an unskilled trade, right? So it's not like a plumber or an electrician or a contractor or a demo company that needs like really strong permits to like demo a fucking building, where you need specialized laborers where you can afford to pay agencies because you have a higher contract value or higher average job size. But I'd say the trends that I'm seeing is junk removal companies, because of the saturation, things are getting so much more competitive. And that's just the nature of the game, right? But where there's competition, it means there's fucking money, right? It's just, can you stand out from the crowd? And I'd say that's the biggest thing I've noticed is influencers like me on the space increasing saturation. And now there's a fuckload of people who are now like going, oh shit, in order for us to fight for leads, it's not as easy as it once was. It's not as easy. It's there. It's just you can't go outside and put out some yard signs and expect yard signs are still you could actually put out, if you put out 500 yard signs a month, you'll fucking kill it for sure. But in the digital landscape, things have changed and it's getting hard. It's getting competitive. So and like I said, that's not what inspired my software. What inspired my software was my frustration on the truck personally. Completely different. There's two sides of it. There's the internal operations side, and then there's the external side of it, where the marketing side, which is completely different. My software is not to bring you leads. I'm not Yelp. I'm not Thumbtack. I'm internal operations. But yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it definitely does.